Hello. So the purpose of this video is to make algebra seem a little more simple and a little more real. So I like to use this rule called the 4-8-2 rule. So the 4-8-2 rule is a good way for us to understand why the rules of algebra work, or at least the basic rules of algebra. So I like to set up the 4-8-2 rule like this. Okay? So just looking at this, you should know that 8, like in your head, you should know that 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Okay? That should be common knowledge to you. But you should also understand that we can reorganize this to the point where if we wanted something to equal 8, what are the other numbers that we're left with if we are only using these numbers? So a 4 and a 2. What do we have to do with a 4 and a 2 in order to make it equal 8? This should be logical. 4 multiplied by 2 equals 8, right? And how about this? What if we wanted to use this and make something equal to 2? How do we use these three numbers to equal 2, right? So we already used the 2. So how do we use 8 and 4 to equal 2? You should know that 8 divided by 4 equals 2. All right? So let's get into some algebra to help us understand how we can do that strictly using algebra. Okay? So let's say I wanted to get the 8 to be alone, kind of like that first example. So in order to get 8 to be alone, I know that 2 multiplied by 4 equals 8. But let's see what algebra does. If we want 8 to be alone, and we have 8 divided by 2, since we are divided by 2, we need to multiply by 2 on each side. So then we end up with 8 divided by 2 times 2, so we cancel out the 2. So we're left with 2 times, remember the dot equals is the same thing as times. 2 times or multiplied by 4 equals 8, right? Just like how if we have v equals d over t, like how we had the 4 equals 8 over 2, v equals d over t. If we want to find d to be alone, just like how we want 8 to be alone, right? 8 to be alone. We have divided by t, so we need to multiply by t on both sides. Just like how we multiplied by 2 on both sides, we multiply by t on both sides because we divide by t. So if we cancel those out, we have t multiplied by v equals d. Okay? So let's say we wanted to use the 4-8-2 rule. 4 equals 8 over 2 in order to solve for 2 to be alone. So unfortunately, we can't just move the 8 because it's 8 divided by 2. So that divided goes with the 2. So if we want the 2 to be set alone, we actually need to move the 2 to both sides. So just like how we divided by 2, we need to do the same steps as we did before. And now again, we cancel the 2 out. So now we have 2 times 4 equals 8. And that makes sense. 2 multiplied by 4 equals 8. Just think about it. It's logical. Now, in order to get the 2 to be alone, we know that we have to, since we're multiplied by 4, we need to divide by 4 on both sides. And we cancel out the 4 on this side. So then we're left with 2 equals 8 over 4. And if you think about it again logically, 8 divided by 4 equals 2. So if we look at the actual algebra, when we talk about just these variables, right? So these aren't numbers, these are variables. We can plug any number in for these as long as, any given number. So if we want to set t to be alone, just like how we did here with the 2 to be set alone, we need to move it to the other side. So it's d divided by t. We need to multiply by t on both sides, cancel out the t, and we're left with t multiplied by v equals d. In this case, again, since we're trying to get t to be alone, we have t multiplied by v, we need to now divide by v on both sides. So we end up canceling the v, so we have t equals d over v. Just like how we have 2 equals 8 over 4. T equals D over V. So hopefully this makes algebra a little simpler, seeing how we can use real numbers and make sense of our final answer. We know that 8 divided by 4 equals 2. Just like how we can use variables. And then once we get it set up to where, okay, we're trying to find t because a word problem gives us a distance and a velocity, now we can plug in whatever that word problem gave us for the distance and velocity and know that we'll find our time, okay? The second thing that I want to go over is that if a question is asking you to find time and you're not sure what the units are, look through the word problem for any unit of time. If the unit of time in the word problem for velocity says something like miles per hour, and we're trying to find time, then if miles per hour is our velocity, the time has to be given in hours, because that's what the word problem gives us. Just like how if the word problem was doing feet per second, right? Feet is going to be a distance, feet per second is a velocity. So if it's feet per second, what's the time going to be? It's not feet. Time isn't measured in feet, right? We're not like, oh, like look at the clock, 10 feet went by. No, it's seconds. So time would be seconds in that case. And just to be clear, a velocity is like we have in our velocity formula is distance over time. So that means if you're solving for a velocity, your answer better include a distance per time. Hopefully that makes sense, like a miles per hour, feet per second, kilometers per day. All right, so hopefully that pulls things together a little for you.